Welcome back to It's a Graham and Matt podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Graham.
And I'm Alan.
And it's Alan.
Wait. Show that again,
ladies.
Graham. Show that again, Graham.
The notifications are going to be popping.
Hey, ladies. I gotta
Who's
find
that
it
dude
again.
laying on the bed there? We gotta
Hold on, ready?
set him
Ready?
up.
Hey, ladies.
Oh, yeah.
That's foul.
No one ask me why I have that on my phone.
No,
Please don't.
that's what you call that's what you call sex appeal right there.
It's something.
Sex appalled. I don't know.
Well, you know they say
Sex deprived.
they say dad bods are in. Well, I'm the king of dad bods.
Oh Christ.
That's fine. You can take that.
Yeah. You get. We'll hand that torch over to you.
Hey, to be fair, I have actually lost a fair amount of weight, so
Hey man, that's good news.
yeah.
So the appalling is turning into the appealing. That's all that
There it is.
matters. Oh well, guys. So hope you guys liked the last episode. This just chatting episode. We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
If you don't like WWE, you probably hated it. But you know what? That's okay.
There's currently 2 views, so.
Oh yeah. So one. I imagine there's a 50% chance that one of them hated it.
Yeah, me. I watched it. I was like, what the hell is this?
Oh come on, it wasn't that bad.
Who let these losers talk on a feud?
Yeah. So tonight's gonna be a little bit more serious, to say the least. Less WWE, more terrorism. So yeah, if you haven't been paying attention at all to the news, there's been a little bit of action going on in the Middle East lately. Israel is dumping a shit ton of bombs on Palestine. And
What's left of Palestine?
What's left of Palestine, and so we kind of wanted to dig around that. I know, like, we've been kind of wanting to talk about the unemployment thing for a little bit. Eventually, maybe getting around to white minority stuff, but that's not tonight.
No.
I think the Palestine thing is way more pressing right now.
Definitely.
So yeah, basically the timetable as it seems so far is there's been an escalation over there. Hamas lobbing missiles over at Israel, and the Iron Dome knocking those down, and Israel basically just retaliating by leveling civilian buildings and basically everything is what it seems like.
Tunnels. We're targeting tunnels that and guarantee, yes, they're probably going after some, but man, like it sucks watching it. It sucks watching it because it's the civilians are the ones that are getting destroyed here.
Yeah,
the small Hamas military doesn't have a chance anyway.
Oh, definitely not. I'm trying to find like kind of where we're at to show like where the death tolls are right now.
200.
Right now,
That's what it says.
Yeah, 200 dead so far.
Yeah.
Many of those civilian. 192 people, including 58 children and 34 women, have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the latest violence began a week ago. Israel has reported 10 dead, including 2 children. So yeah,
seems like a fair trade-off.
Right. And here's the thing too to kind of consider with this too. I mean, it's not like Hamas is out there using state-of-the-art weaponry either, right? If I know correctly, a lot of this stuff is like kind of like made right there, kind of like, oh, they can like retrofit some shit for missiles. Also, like kind of like some old Soviet tech is another thing I've heard.
Yep.
Whereas Israel
it's hard, and it's hard. Well, here's the deal too. It's hard to get weaponry and like updated weaponry into a spot when you're surrounded by Israel.
Oh yeah.
When Palestine doesn't have an open border,
Mhm.
because they're surrounded. Like anything and everything that they have is snuck in, or like you said, created, or you know,
Yeah, like homebrewed.
produce homebrewed. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's like the same situation in Syria, you know,
exactly.
is they were, they were building their own mortars and all that stuff there. So
Yeah, and we kind of touched on that during the Civil War episode too, kind of like about how, like, in times of war like this, a lot of times like we don't think that people have the capabilities, but it's amazing what people can come up with. Like,
yeah,
instead of having like true military drones, they're using like DJIs and dropping grenades from them.
yeah,
And that's kind of like their own way to do a drone strike.
Yeah,
But it's interesting because, like, I mean, most of these weapons that are coming out of Israel are coming from the United States. For instance, so like there's a big talk right now because the Biden administration is wanting to send, I want to say it was like 762 million. I'm gonna look it up here real quick. Um, arms deal over to Israel, and so far the squad, like the super left women, like 4 women of the House of Representatives, saying no. Like, on one hand, you can't be calling for a ceasefire and then just delivering the bombs that they're currently dropping on these people. Um, Boeing, actually, the airplane maker, they're the ones who are actually like making these weapons for Israel. Um, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of kind of goes into the Israel thing, like the history behind it, and why we support them so much, and because the state of Israel itself didn't exist obviously before 1948, at least since like Roman times. So I mean, the majority of Israelis right now, I believe, are European Jews that were
yeah,
relocated there.
yeah,
Basically said,
yeah,
"Yeah, this is your land now.
yeah,
It was your land, 1,000 years ago, but now it's yours again."
yeah. The
Um,
League of Nations after the World War One was it gave them the power, like gave British power over the Palestinian land
yeah,
yeah, and then World War
back in the
II, the
20s. Yeah,
UN. Yeah, and then after World War II, the UN at that point gave or made it the state of Israel.
yeah,
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
That's when that's where they divided it up and everything. Yeah,
Yeah. And so like we've been like having this idea ever since then that we need to defend them. And I think to kind of go into the history part of it, like a lot of people are doing that because of something called Zionism. Um that's why you see a lot of protests right now from Jewish Americans saying like Zionism is bad. Basically the idea that like Israel is the chosen land for God's people. Um which is, I mean, I think it's horseshit. Like, I mean, you're displacing a ton of people. Um, but yeah, so like we defend Israel with everything we have, based under this idea that we're doing something in God's eyes that's good and correct, and that we have God's protection because of it. But realistically, it's just causing more issues, right?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, basically they've been enemies of everybody around them since their inception.
yeah,
And then we've been steadily supplying them weapons ever since then. And Graham was mentioning before the beginning of the show here about the map of Palestine, and basically what was given to Israel and what was given to Palestine, and how Palestine has shrunk pretty significantly.
shrunk to nothing at this point. Like it looks like land plots north of a suburb at this point. Alan, I can't even share my screen or anything, but um, yeah, like that's a good, we can show a little blip here, Alan. You can just go blip
yeah,
of this little map,
Yeah,
and I'll send you the link right now. But
yeah.
really, like it comes down to where, like, if you think of just a square and that square just depleting down to nothing, like that's essentially what Israel has done to Palestinian land. Like there's nothing left. It's just small little pockets of region where they don't even have enough access to each other. Like there's all these little pockets of communities. It's almost like um, checkerboarding segregation
Hmm.
that we did to like Native American folk. Um, and how we do with black communities is we checkerboard them in between white communities. And so then there's a separation there. It's the same thing when you look at like the map currently, is like there's so much separation. And the only large part that's currently like intact is the small little sliver left of the Gaza Strip,
Yep.
which is barely anything at this point either.
Yeah, I was just
it's
gonna
classic divide and conquer.
mention that it's very similar to what we did in America to the Native American population.
Yep.
Or what happened in South Africa during apartheid.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the hot topic word right now too. Is, I mean, a lot of people are viewing this as true apartheid, but nobody's willing to step in and say, "Hey, Israel, maybe you should fucking stop."
Well,
Like,
now isn't Russia and these countries talking about how they need to defend Palestine? Is there something
Yeah,
like that going on?
yeah, I mean, I think
I
there's
haven't been totally in the news.
yeah, I mean, there's an ideological struggle here, right? So let's see, Russia on Israel. Because I mean, like, obviously, like all of our Russia warns Israel it won't tolerate more civilian casualties in Gaza. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's weird because like we're at a time in history now where nationalism is kind of on the downtick, and
Yeah.
people now with more information available to us through things like the internet and all that, people are more critical of their government, especially young people, and it is older people too, but I mean, like, young people especially are out there um researching things more than they did in the past. Because I mean, when you guys were in school learning about Israel, also granted we grew up in religious households too,
Yep.
but like we always
Not me.
oh, not you, okay.
No.
But like, I mean, but I guess even if you weren't, I think that there was still that mentality pretty much all around America that Israel is there for us to defend.
Yep.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I didn't understand or know any of that until college. Until I
Yep.
got to college and I started hearing people talk about politics, and it was crazy because when I was in college, one of my really good friends, his name is Boutros, um, is Palestinian, and really got me to understand like the difference between Israel and Palestine, and the misconstrued perception of like the power that Palestinians have over Israel. And he would talk about like being classified as a terrorist
Mhm.
because he was a rock thrower. Kids would be classified as terrorists because they'd be rock throwers, and
Yeah.
you're essentially going up against rocks going up against machine guns and rocket launchers.
Mhm.
But he really just gave me like this insane understanding, which was really interesting, being like new to like Christianity, and new to the understanding of like what how Christians support um, Israel, um, versus Palestinians, and just seeing his viewpoint as a Christian who lives in Palestine. I think he still lives in Palestine. I'm pretty sure he went back for a small stint. I don't know if he's still there or not. I should look him up actually. Um, but to like have him tell me this way versus this way, I instantly believed his version, because everything over here seemed like this lovely little story about how these people are just like in the way and they're terrible people and they're going to hell anyway.
So your friend was a Christian?
Yeah.
Or Muslim? Yeah,
Christian.
and that's an interesting thing because there is a lot of Palestinian Christians.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's not like Palestine is like the Sharia law Islamic
No.
nation either. Like there's a lot of like multi-religious entities over there. And so
Yeah.
like a lot of people are more willing to turn this into a religious talk.
Yep.
Like, oh, we need to protect them because they're God's people and all this other shit. Because I feel like the problem with white Christian, not necessarily, well, I would say Western Christians, Western Christianity versus white Christianity, is like we don't understand a lot. Like, even if we're talking about like the plight of Christianity in other countries, right? We don't understand what it's like to struggle or, to be oppressed. We think, oh, he's making fun of our religion, I'm oppressed. It's nothing to do with that.
No.
Or I can't pray in school. Or no, let me rephrase that. The teachers won't pray with me at school. No, of course not. But you could literally bring your Bible to school and read it in class. It doesn't matter.
Well, like
in other places, you'll get killed for that.
Like I'm just remembering, Matt, like the first time, like before I went to Oak Hills, you know, I grew up, you know, thinking, oh yeah, we got to support Israel and all this stuff, and you know, and it wasn't until I met you and you talked about it, you're like, dude, that's like Zionism right there. I'm like, wait, what? And then I learned,
Yeah, well,
then that was when I learned that, oh yeah, you know, this probably isn't the right way of thinking.
Well, no, because a lot of times
Zionism.
I mean, the basis of Zionism is that Israel is the chosen land for God's chosen people, and as Christians, you would have a responsibility to defend and support that. And so, like, basically, it's like it's their right to have it, and we need to uphold that right because it gives us favor in God's eyes. That's Zionism.
Which
the problem is that people tend to look at you as if you're an anti-Semite for being anti-Israel. Because I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jewish people at all. Like they're just like you and I. I mean, like there's like Judaism is huge in America. Judaism is huge. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say the Judaism is huge in Europe as it used to be because
would you do you think it's fair to say that a lot of the ideas of Zionism come from like oh my God, they what they suffered in World War II with the concentration camps and
I think part of it is
attempted
that
genocide.
I think part of it is that. I mean, I think that truly the UN was trying to do something good by giving them a home.
Mm-hmm.
But because really nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
Like people like to think that World War II and like the regime of Hitler was like that was like the beginning of like anti-Jewish thought when it definitely isn't. Like literally Jews have been oppressed everywhere since they killed Jesus. Like in Europe, they're constantly, anti-Semitic. In America, like even after World War II, a lot of like Jews couldn't go into like certain establishments.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't like Jews here. Like people in general have always had beef with Jews, and it's wrong because I mean it's racism just like any other type of discrimination. It's not right, but like with Zionism it's different because like at that point Western Christians hate other religions more than they hate Jews.
Yeah.
I think is what it comes down to because I mean even growing up
and that just justifies any means at that point.
yeah, I mean like even if you go to like most churches now and you start talking about Jews like I mean they're like, oh yeah, like Jews are kind of cool, but yeah, they're going to hell. Like they still view Jews as wrong. Like 100%. They don't see much camaraderie because like, oh, they're lost, like they don't know what they're talking about. But there's
Alan,
still that yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, Alan, explain to me what BCE is or CE is.
BC
when it comes to
so
historical dates.
So BCE means before the Common Era, and CE means Common Era, which was basically it was a way to instead of using BC, which was before Christ, and AD, which is Anno Domini, which is the year of our Lord. It was just a more secular way of the timeline. So basically, like BCE is anything before the year 0, and CE is after 0.
I get that. Now I know that there was a change. I just didn't know what it was, I haven't paid attention to that stuff forever. So
yeah, it's weird because like
Mr. Encyclopedia.
When we were kids, it was still BC and AD, wasn't it?
Yep, and it's still BC and AD is still really like overly commonly used. So it's not like BCE and CE took off anyways.
I mean, that's all I see, but I think it depends what circles you're rolling with. Because I imagine, like, if you're still in a religious type setting, and not in a scholarly setting, they're still going to use BC and AD.
I mean, BC and AD still has a lot of like scholarly historic significance though too, because that was like a lot of a lot of scholarship and education was like through the early, like the early Christian church, at least for Western civilization.
Yeah, you probably didn't see that as much in Eastern
No,
because, like, I mean, Eastern was primarily looking at like either Orthodox Christianity or Islam,
or
Hinduism,
yeah,
Buddhism. Like
or
it's not
ancestor worship was a big one.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they had totally different belief systems, but
Okay, so back on point then about what's going on.
mhm.
What do you guys think, or what have you guys read of like a time frame of when like, so I know that Biden called for a reduction, not a ceasefire. Did he call for a ceasefire?
He said he's open to a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Okay. So and Netanyahu essentially
He said
said no.
no.
He said there's a quote here from him. It says, and this is from the BBC.com. He said there were only two ways that you can deal with Hamas. You can either conquer them, and that's always an open possibility, or you can deter them. And we are engaged right now in forceful deterrence. But I have to say, we don't rule out anything. That's pretty bold. Essentially,
I mean,
willing to just get rid of them.
here's my thoughts. So I think a lot of it has to do with the word terrorist, because terrorist is not a black and white term, right? So a terrorist is simply somebody fighting for a cause that you don't believe in. That's what a terrorist is. So it's easy for us, like the United States, to be stuck in a war for what are we going on
20
now?
years.
20 years.
Yep.
Yeah. 20 years because we're fighting terrorists.
And technically,
which-
that war started back in 1991 and with the Gulf War.
Yeah, I mean, like that, you could say that a global war on terror has been around for a long time. Like it's been brewing since Iran like became the Islamic Republic, right?
Yeah,
So
it started really started back during the Iranian hostage crisis.
yeah, and so like this idea of terrorism is really what's fueling this whole thing. So forever we're being told about, and when we hear about Israel in Western media up until really recently, I would say up until the internet age, it was always Israel fighting against terrorist groups such as Hamas or the PLO, like Yasser Arafat, the PLO, Hezbollah, all these people. Like terrorist groups is what they're being called. And yeah, they do some things that probably aren't great, right? But at the end of the day,
That's a retaliatory reaction, though, to it is like
a
I said,
retaliatory reaction, yeah. And these people are. Go ahead, yeah.
yeah. These people, like you said, when like I'm continuing to read, and it just goes back to like my time 20 years ago, mind you, talking to my Palestinian friend, um, where they're going with bricks and mortars,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coming back with rockets and missiles and full armies. It's like me and Alan going against 50 people.
Yeah.
And we have our fists, and they have machetes and machine guns.
Yeah, and
I mean, we're big, strong Viking dudes, but
I mean, to be
It's
fair,
like
like
pretty-
I mean, yeah, there
pretty
have been some
one-sided.
things that are kind of shady. Like, I mean, we have car bombings, right, that are actually killing Israeli.
Oh yeah. The Hamas is not by any means like
innocent at all.
we're supporting them or anything like that. This is
No.
the innocence of the people that are in between all this, and
But-
Hamas being considered this mass terrorist organization. They're from what I hear, whatever, and I could be wrong. They're more of a nuisance organization.
I mean, if
I wouldn't agree with that.
No,
You wouldn't? Okay.
If Hamas is
Okay.
a terrorist organization, then so is Mossad.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the thing is like what Hamas does is reactionary, like you said. So Israel drops a bomb, Hamas blows up a car.
Yeah.
In warfare, in general, who usually suffers the worst?
It's
It's the civilians.
the citizens, yeah.
So it's civilians losing their houses, it's civilians losing their kids. So like, and it's a perpetual cycle. Israel blows up. It's the same thing as when we do it. You know, you blow up somebody's house or their apartment building and you kill their parents, right? What's that kid gonna grow up to believe? Oh, I love Israel.
Right.
Yeah, like they see their dad died, so they're gonna be radicalized at a young age.
Yep.
I mean, what we're seeing now, I would argue, and this isn't necessarily defending it, but it's not condemning it either. It's guerrilla warfare. Like these countries, and I would say countries, Palestine and Israel, have been in a Cold War with hotspots ever since 1948.
Yep.
Well,
And it's continuing
it
to
goes
get
back
worse.
even longer than that. I mean, it goes back to when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt into the Middle East, into the Promised Land. You know, they were
Yeah, but the difference here is
that's
that these aren't people that are. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like
no,
these Israelis are not, and this is not their ancestral home for the most part. These are
yep,
displaced white Europeans.
yep.
Yep.
That
They mean, if
maybe,
anything, this is New Age colonialism,
yep.
is what it is.
But
Like
like,
we're going in there, we're taking this over, try and fight us.
but the cultural and racial Israelites have been basically fighting against the Palestinians and all the people of the Middle East since, you know, what, 2000 BC,
Yeah,
1000
I
BC,
just
whatever it
hate
was.
that argument though, because like you could say that about literally anybody.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you could talk. I mean, what are some Native American tribes that have consistently been fighting since before white Europeans came? I mean, granted, they're
yeah,
not fighting anymore because they have a common enemy now. But like
Yeah.
before the white man came here, you had tribes fighting each other for ages.
yep,
You
Yep.
still see that in South America. You'll have tribes that are the same people but different tribes
yep.
fighting each other. In the Middle East, you have the Shiites versus the Sunnis.
Well,
Like
even
tribal warfare.
go back to
Go ahead.
like my ancestors, you know, the Nordic peoples, like,
Yeah.
Norway, Sweden, you know, all,
Yeah,
Finland.
like you have the
They,
Saxons fighting the Franks,
yep,
and like
they
the
were always
Romans fighting
fighting.
the Goths.
I
Like
mean,
you could literally, the only difference between tribal warfare and sovereign national warfare is the size of the tribe,
yep,
right? Otherwise, there's no difference. And so like I hate the religious aspect of it because like that ends up being a Zionist argument
yep,
again to me. It should have nothing to do with the religion.
no,
Like I don't. What I was saying before is like, I mean, this has to do with terrorism.
yep,
It has to do with the idea of perpetuating the idea that these people are terrorists, even though Israel is doing the same terroristic things.
yep,
But since we like Israel, we are more prone to believe the argument of defense. But you saw the numbers. We told you guys the numbers: 200 dead in Palestine versus 10 dead.
and
Yeah.
You know,
and
we're talking a
Well,
200% increase.
yeah. And I think also too, like I think part of what we got to look at, let's go back to like the mentality of like war's been systematic forever, right? It's like we always talk about like we're inherently good, but we're more inherently evil, right? Because without being evil, meaning killing and sacrificing and all these things, we're not going to get what we need. We're not going to be able to grow. We're not going to be able to move on as a society and become better, right?
Yeah.
Um,
yep,
and we do those things and justify them with the good of it, right? So when you look at like tribal mentality, a lot of that is based off of resources. It's
Yeah.
less based off of, well, we hate that group of people or we hate this group of people. A lot of it's based off of the resource of it.
We want what
We
they
need,
have.
yep,
we want what they have because we're dying over here because we don't have it, right?
Mhm.
And that's a lot of what that is. Now there's other ones where it's like, well, we just want to expand and control the world, So then you have your Genghis Khans, you have your Hitlers, you have all these other people, you have whoever it may be,
Putin,
and then you have Putin, and then you have your religious persecution wars, right?
yep.
Where it's just we hate that sect of people. We don't need what they have. We just hate them, so we're
So,
going to destroy
I
them.
mean, you're referring there to the Crusades,
Yeah, yeah,
which
um,
I mean, to point out, the Crusades were also a way to deal with like all these Germanic and Nordic peoples that had just converted to Christianity and came from, the way of the Viking, that kind of stuff, like very barbaric, like, well, not necessarily barbaric, but a way of life that was like rewarded, like going out and raiding and all that stuff. And it was like, we got to give these people something to do. So what do? They send them to the Middle East and like, go fight
Oh
for.
yeah,
Let's
and
go take this
even
over.
during the Crusades, like that was a very racist war.
It
Like
was-
literally,
it was.
like they'd come across like Christians in these other places, and literally they would kill them because they were
They-
brown.
Yep, and they didn't speak, you know, the same language, or they couldn't
Yeah.
speak Latin or something.
Yeah. So the thing about Israel now is, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say is like the problem with this particular conflict. We've all grown up with this conflict our entire lives. Oh, it's better. You know, we're making moves. Oh, nope. More gunfire, more bombs, blah blah blah. It never ends.
They're making moves. They're taking over more land
Yeah, but like
year by year.
there's no peace. Like they say, oh, we're close to peace. You know, we have a ceasefire. We're getting closer and closer to peace. Or how many times throughout our lives have we seen U.S. is facilitating uh, Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, and it never goes
Yeah.
anywhere because it's
Never
going to
goes
end in one of two ways. Either Israel is going to take over that entire area, and they're just going to eradicate the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
I mean, because basically what we're looking at now, I mean, this is like, it's kind of like a genocide, honestly. Like they are trying to kill these people and steal their land. And
Well, I
then
mean, isn't that literally
Yeah.
the point of like a land war? Is that you're going to either genocide and completely wipe them out, or what a lot of like Western civilizations did, which was like full integration. I mean, there's no like in
I
between.
wouldn't even
It's
say
one or the other.
integration as much as eradication of culture.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
like the Americans were really good at cultural genocide when it came to Native
Yeah.
Americans.
And again, that goes back to checkerboarding. That goes back to not allowing that culture or that religion to be taught or be, exist or talked about or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so when you name a people group terrorists first, right? The terrorist Palestinians, the terrorist, it's like the Chinese virus. Like when you do that type of commentary, that's part of that eradication of that people group.
Mhm.
Before guns and before anything else that comes out, if you just speak that way all the time, just like racism, if you just speak and say really nasty things, that's that mentality of how you're teaching people to think of that and the world. So like this is like the world. Who in the world, hardly anybody in the world is like pro Palestine because they just think of Palestine as this massive terrorist group of people, these nasty underbelly people.
Yeah.
And so it's good to see countries like Turkey coming out and calling this terrorism. You have other countries that are popping in and they're being like, "Oh yeah, we can help start a war." Do you really
Yeah, I
think
mean-
Russia's like, "Oh, don't hurt the Palestinian people"? They have a different.
They might be. Like,
Maybe, though.
I think that we have that same mentality about Russia as we do
Yeah.
about like
True.
Israel.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's
We
hard
don't know what it's like
it's-
anywhere else because we're stuck here.
Well, I think it's hard to break past that nationalism we've been taught our entire lives. Like Russia is evil, they're communists, blah 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 blah. Or the Middle East is bad because they're Muslims and blah 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 blah. Like taking the nationalism out of it, we have to look at things fairly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
does what Russia does in terms of gaining land, blah 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 blah. Is it that different than the way we do things? Like,
Yeah. True.
we don't like
We are not. We set ourselves up to think that we're perfect and right, and we're
100%.
definitely we're no different than
Russia-
any other country, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, instead of like going into a country and saying, "Hey, let's have a vote. Do you want to join our country?" and then they vote yes, whether it's under gunpoint, blah blah blah, whatever. We have military bases all over the world, and in most countries, like we are imperialists by nature in America. Never used to be that way, but that's the way it is now. I mean, like we do the same stuff differently. So I do believe that. I mean, I think that Russia is saying the right thing. Like, hey,
Yeah.
there's a lot of innocent people dying. You should probably chill the fuck out. But the problem is Russia also knows that they can't get too brazen because if they do, now they're ruffling our feathers.
Yeah.
And that's where things get worse.
Well, and
Um,
I would like to point out that it's very, very much like very probable that Russia is saying that because they also have bad PR themselves. I mean, look what they did to the Ukraine. You know,
Well, I mean, there's a
what's
lot of
happened in
there's
the
a
last
lot of
couple years.
propaganda behind that.
Yeah, yeah,
too. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like the people voted in Crimea to join the Russian Empire, or
Yeah.
the Russian Empire, the Russian Federation.
Well, at least
Whether it was at gunpoint,
I was
that's
going to
not
say,
room for debate.
I was going to point out, at least that is what the national Russian media has said, is that it was voted.
I mean, but think about it this
but-
way, right? If we had like a sliver of Mexico right underneath Texas, right? If you were to hold a vote there and say, hey, do you want to stay in your country with all the problems going on with it? Or would you rather, as a people, vote and let us annex you? What do you think those people are going to vote
Oh,
for?
God, they're going to get annexed.
They're going to get
Yeah.
annexed because the opportunities are higher in our
Yep.
country. The quality of life is better
Yep.
in our country. I mean, like you have to be realistic with things like the Crimean Peninsula and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It makes sense that they would want to join Russia. But when it comes to Israel, like, dude, I think that this is gonna eventually we are gonna have to say something. And eventually we are gonna have to put the hammer down on Israel and say, look, guys, you need to stop. Like, you need to go back. You need to keep your borders where they are, or they need to say, look, Palestine, this is yours. And then at that point, Israel can make the decision, okay, I'm going to roll with it, or I'm going to go full-blown war.
Yeah.
And they can't go full-blown war because literally if they keep escalating, they're gonna make a lot more enemies. They are surrounded by enemies. Rightfully so, because Israel hasn't exactly gone out of its way to be friendly to people.
Yeah,
No.
the only country that they've been really friendly with has been America. I mean, like
Yeah, because even Europe's kind of getting sick of their shit.
yeah, like if I remember right, I can't remember who told me this, but like it was like I think it was like some missionary or something to Israel had said like a lot of Israelis in Israel refer to themselves as like the little USA. Like
Yeah,
that,
I mean-
that's the ideal, is that they consider us like kind of a part of the USA, but you know, independent and separate at the same time. And that kind of ties
Yeah, I mean,
that ties
the
into
nice
like the
thing about-
Zionism.
I mean, Israel as a country is pretty well advanced.
Mhm.
When it comes to equality, things like that, like they treat their people well.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily, you can't just let that distract you from the fact that their country is tyrannical
I mean,
when it comes to their treatment of those around them.
I think what's really interesting is that to become a full citizen of Israel is that you have to serve 2 years in the military. Like you have to serve your country first before you're considered a full citizen, which I think is a very interesting way to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they need it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're surrounded by
It
enemies.
also promotes the idea that hey, you need to serve, like you are, your country serves you and you need to serve your country. You know, it's
It's
kind of
upsetting though, because like that's a military of oppression.
it is. I mean, and it's like almost ripped straight out of what's his name, the author of Ender's Game, or not Ender's Game, Starship Troopers. Heinlein, was it Heinlein?
Mhm.
I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
But
Yeah,
like
you guys are way smarter than me
but
right
like
now.
in that in that book, in Starship Troopers, in the book, the whole
That was
thing.
a book. I thought it was just a movie.
No,
It
dude,
was a shitty movie.
it was a really no, it was actually a pretty clever movie, but anyways, no, like in the book and in the movie is that you don't become a full citizen until you serve in the military, like so like you're or not in the military, but you serve not necessarily the military, but you serve in some sort of fashion for the government of the people. So like you're serving your fellow citizens before
Doing
you
my
become a full
part.
citizen. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a cool, like, interesting ideal is that hey, you're putting your fellow citizens or your country or your nation or in the book's case in the world before yourself, and you're going to like volunteer, or not necessarily volunteer, but you're going to serve them first.
Yeah, but weren't those people oppressing that race?
Oh God, yeah.
Weren't they oppressing that civilization
Yep.
they were after?
Yeah. It turns out like later on they find out that like that's the whatever the aliens that they were fighting in the movie and in the book were actually like intelligent and stuff. So
Yeah, dude. The bottom line is Israel was the oppressed, and they've turned into the oppressor. Um,
Yeah.
because that's what happens when you have the United States backing you. Is you
Yep.
can get away with anything. And it's really sad. Like I've seen a lot of videos, and a lot of pictures about some of the carnage that's going on in Gaza right now, and it's people refuse to believe it. I guarantee you go to most churches, especially in this country, and they'll say, "Yeah, they deserve it." Like
Yep.
Oof.
that's God's people. They deserve what
it
they're
honestly like upsets me when I go onto like Facebook or anything, and like my really more conservative like Christian friends are all like, we stand with Israel. We're totally okay with them. Like,
Has Facebook made a little ring that goes around your stupid
yeah,
Facebook icon
yeah,
already?
yeah. There's people that have the
No.
profile frames or whatever that are
I
like,
don't think it would be a I stand with Israel though.
no,
That I think
there is. I literally have seen that today.
that's
What?
disgusting.
Because
What?
you can make like your own frames and stuff to show your
Ah,
support for causes. But it's just it
that-
disturbs me, especially from the Christian crowd, because do you really think Jesus would approve of murdering all these innocent people? I mean, of course he wouldn't. You've read the Bible. You went to Christian college. You went to Christian college. You've read the Bible. Read Jesus's teachings. He would absolutely not approve. He spoke about peace.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like there was the time in the temple when he like absolutely like fashioned a whip and like chased out all the money changers and stuff like that. But I mean, he literally he spoke truth and peace and said, "Hey, this is the truth." And you know, he wasn't a warmonger. That's the thing, and that's what's going on right now in Israel. Is they're basically becoming warmongers, or have been.
100%.
So then what's the conclusion? What's the outcome then in your guys' mindset? Like that's the part like that just keeps rolling through my mind. It's like yes, we know what's going on here, and we know like it's going to sway one way heavily, right? Towards either support or non-support. Um, they're probably not going to listen anyway if it's non-support, right? Unless it comes from America. But even if it comes from America, like if Biden told him to chill out, and he's like, "Nah, we're going to carry on." Like, what do you think? What do you think? Two conclusions or three conclusions? Let's do three.
Yeah. So I
Outcomes
was
of
talking
this.
about that. I was talking about that with my buddy Crims yesterday, and I said, "Hey, when's your boy Joe Biden gonna tell Israel they need to chill the fuck out?" And his response was, "It's too unpopular. It's too unpopular to do. Like he can't do that with the pot with and try and have support within the political spectrum." Um, that's very sad to me.
It's awful.
Wow.
It's seriously awful. That
If
is
you're
the
in
whole
that
reason.
position of power, you should be willing to make a stand for what you believe in. And if he doesn't believe in that, then he can be president. But I think the outcomes are number one, I don't think anything will happen. I think that Israel will keep doing this. We'll do lip service through peace talks, and it won't change a thing. We'll be back in this situation a year from now. Or scenario two, it goes full blown war, and you start to see more support from other Middle Eastern countries going to help Palestine. And it's going to go full blown war. No, scenario number three is the nightmare scenario where Russia carries out bombing targets on Israel.
Yeah.
Because if that happens, get ready.
Yep. Because if Russia does that, then there's absolutely zero chance that America doesn't get involved.
100%. You will see boots on the ground in
Yep.
Israel.
I mean, I would not be surprised if a draft happened if that happened.
Well, luckily I'm too old and chubby for that, so
Yeah, I can't even be a cop anymore, so I'm good too.
yeah, that's the nightmare scenario though. But I would say like the most realistic scenarios are scenario 1 and 2. That the scenario number 1 once again was we pay lip service, we do a peace talk that stops for a little while and it keeps going.
Oh,
Well, and
Scenario 3 is
Hamas is already predicting, 1 or 2 more days left of this
Yeah.
until a ceasefire happens.
literally, that is what has happened every single frickin' time.
Yeah.
In the Middle East is like Israel and Palestine, or Israel and
Well, it's
God
like
knows
it's like
what
the
else. They fight in war for like 6 days, 7 days, like
yeah.
the 7
It's-
days war,
it's-
and then it's like, oh no, we're gonna have an armistice.
It's a slow game of Risk where you slowly are just pegging and pegging and pegging at a country until there's nothing left to peg, and then you completely take over. And when you look at borders since 1948, when Palestine and when all the stuff like just really kicked in, and the war happened, and you just look at like land, what do they call it, land reclaiming or whatever that they're
Yep.
doing, that Israel's doing. Annexation.
Yep.
When you look at how much land they've reclaimed in almost 100 years now, I mean, we're 20
80
years,
later.
yeah, 80 years later, it's 20 years shy of 100 years. There's hardly anything left anyway. So in 100 years, they're just going to keep picking and picking and picking. Not that I hope for that, but I don't hope for any of those scenarios.
I don't think the
Well-
state of Palestine will last for another 10 years.
Literally though, this has been happening for like thousands of years. Is that these two cultural groups have been fighting over the same
Well,
areas of land.
and if you look back through like the history too, it's all other religions or groups pitting them against each other. When you look
yeah.
back at it too, like, hey, we're gonna throw you over here, have fun with those people. Hey, we're gonna throw you over here, have fun with those people. Like it's never really been like, it's almost like it hasn't been by their choice for the last thousands of years anyway. It's been forced upon them by all these other leaders or all these other religions that are pushing them against each other.
Mhm.
It's like sticking two beta fishes in a bowl and figuring out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point, and I'll preface this by saying that a lot of people want this to happen.
That's just
Some
that's so
No.
messed up to me, though.
No, you haven't
It's
even
not.
heard the next part though. What I'm about to say, a lot of people want this to happen. At some point, what you're going to see is you're going to see full-blown war coming out of that region.
Yeah.
I think the next conflict that ignites World War III is coming out of that region.
Yep.
And the thing is, a lot of people want that because there's a lot of stupid people who think that that is going to be what basically ignites the return of Jesus.
Yep. I was just gonna say that there are Christians that want it to
That's
happen.
endgame Zionism right there.
That there's a lot of
I
Christians
actually
that want
just
that to
saw-
happen because then it brings about revelation.
Yeah, I actually just saw a very disturbing, like 2 or 3 TikToks that talked exactly about that, about how handshake, Putin's handshaking with Turkey and Turkey's handshaking with this person, that person, and you have this and this and this, and it's all been said in Revelation that this is going to happen. And you don't want that crap to happen because it's bullshit.
Well, that's the thing is they do though. Like that's the problem with Zionism. It's not based in reality. It's based in religion, and like religion is not reality. And so like they are more than happy to see innocent bodies burn, to bring about a war that they think is going to cause the end of the world, which is going to bring back their god, and that's fucking silly.
Yeah.
And that's why people are rooting for this. Like people want escalation because the like you go into like any like religious person's house and they're watching, let's say like conservative religious person's house, and they're watching the news on this, we're like, get ready, Christ is coming back soon.
Yep.
It's gonna happen.
Which
And it's like, are you like why do you have a boner when you say that?
Which
Like,
honestly, like I've said before, if you are a Christian who actually follows Christ's teachings, you don't want that to happen because you want as much time as possible to go out and preach the gospel of Jesus and like try to save as many people as possible before that happens. You want to delay that because you know that like the people that don't believe that are going to end up going to hell. So,
Oh, but there's not enough room in heaven anymore.
so
That depends on which version of Christianity you believe in, but we don't have to talk about that.
no,
right?
but I mean, like but why, if you truly are a follower of Christ, you don't want that to happen to these people, right? You
Well,
know what I
yeah,
mean? You
There's
want
one key thing you're
you
forgetting
want to
about
save as
Western
many people as
Christianity, though.
possible.
There's one key thing you're missing about Western Christianity, though.
Yeah. What's that?
They're fucking racist.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. Well, I
They
mean,
don't give a shit about the brown people
no,
converting to Christianity. Dude.
but that's not. But then I would say that's not true Christianity then, at all.
It isn't, but it's Western Christianity. Like that's the way. That's that. Like I remember specifically being in church after we're just fucking obliterating Iraq, right? And like we're drone striking all these civilians and killing all these civilians and blah 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 blah. The whole country's in disarray, and my pastor's standing up there proudly. I've got running water in Iraq now, and Iraq's got this now. Iraq's got that.
Jeez.
And it's like, and I remember everybody's like, praise the Lord.
Which
Like,
Wow.
we're over there murdering civilians, and my pastor has the entire congregation going, praise the Lord.
which is stupid, because before America interfered in Iraq and Iran, they literally had like they were having like a lot of equality. They were basically like us.
Oh,
And
I mean,
then-
you can't
and then-
whitewash Iraq. I mean, Saddam Hussein was a dickhead, yes.
Oh God, yeah.
And he was a dictator.
But that was
yes.
us.
But the
that
country was stable.
that was us that put him in power, and it was the same thing in Iran. We fucked
Yeah.
around with that.
Yeah, like,
you know,
the different, like, yeah, he was a dictator for sure, and he did some really shitty things.
Yep.
But Al Qaeda wasn't in there.
Nope.
ISIS never would have stood a chance,
who do you think?
and it was stable.
Who do you think trained Osama bin Laden? It was our CIA.
Yeah,
Who do you think trained
the Taliban.
the Taliban? Who do you think trained what's his name from Iraq? I can't even think of his name now.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein. Us.
Yeah, because we hated Iran more.
Yeah,
That's
because
the thing is, like, in that podcast that we listened to, we've touched on before, it could
Yep.
happen here.
Mhm.
There's this mentality that whenever you're training somebody something like that, it's always going to be used against you.
Yep.
It happened in Rome. It's happened in the United States. And like, even if you look at like Dormer, Chris Dormer, right? That military dude, like
Yep.
that shot up a bunch of people. Like, he was trained to be a killer.
Yep.
And he used that against other cops because he saw injustice.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know why Chris Dormer went on such a tirade. Like, we just hear that he's deranged, blah 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 blah. No, he tried to report some shady things he was seeing within his police department, and he basically got let go and was reprimanded for turning in his brothers and sisters in arms, or whatever. And so he lost, and he's like, I'm gonna kill cops because you guys are corrupt.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I can't say that I don't 100% vibe with that, honestly. I mean, like, I don't vibe with it. Let me rephrase that. I don't vibe with the idea of killing cops, because he probably was killing people that didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
But
But his understanding of why he's pissed off.
But he
Yeah,
saw.
I understand
But
why
he
he was
saw
pissed off.
he saw injustice happening, and he decided to take the law into his own hands.
I mean, that's unfortunately the way it goes sometimes. But I mean, like, yeah, we don't have to get into
No,
my feelings
no,
on
that's
the
not.
cops, but
Like,
everybody knows my feelings on the cops
Yep.
already.
I mean, and
Um,
I have to point out that, like, as someone who identifies with a lot of libertarian ideals, maybe left-leaning libertarian as I am, is that why are we interfering in the Middle East to begin with? Why are we going around to like
Oil.
South America and screwing around with that?
oh, that's different.
I mean,
That's Red Scare bullshit.
yeah,
down
yeah.
there.
So, like, why are we? But it's the same thing. It translates over to what we're doing in the Middle East. So why are we doing that in the first place? Why aren't we taking care of our own people at home first? When we have so
Well-
many issues and problems. I mean, yeah, like let's help these people overseas that need help. but let's not try to go enforce our will upon people of another nation that didn't
We
ask
only
for
help
it.
those who can. We only help those who can benefit our interests.
I was
Like
gonna
if you
say
look,
we don't do
if you look,
anything outside of benefiting us.
Yeah.
yeah, if you look at like Rwanda, right? Did we get involved in Rwanda
Nope.
when they were slashing each
And
other's arms off?
and
with
you know what?
machetes?
I think we should have, because that would have been the right thing to do. Not necessarily to
Yeah,
go
but that's
enforce
the
our
thing is
will,
we're not Captain Planet, dude. We're
No.
only helping the people that will in turn help us. Like we
And,
don't give
and
a
that's a
shit.
that's a sad factor when we call ourselves the peace
Yep.
nation and the peacekeepers of the world and this and that
We are
and
Team
when
America.
or UN. Same thing with UN. Like the UN
No.
stepped in way too late. Like when you talk about Rwanda and stuff like that, like stepped in way too late.
Let me tell you something
Um,
about the UN. The UN has absolutely zero balls. The UN is literally just like all it is all for show. It's bread and circus for the people of the world. That's all it is.
I mean, especially if you're not on the Security Council.
Exactly.
Like, if you're just a
The
random
Security
user.
Council literally runs the world, which is what is the Security Council? It's America, it's Russia, it's Britain,
It's the victors of World War II.
China, I believe, is on it.
I know.
What's the other?
Yeah.
What's the fifth
yeah.
one? I don't remember.
The UK, America, France, Russia, right? UK, Britain, France, Russia, China.
And America.
Yeah, US,
Six.
Britain,
Yep.
UK, US, Britain, France, China, Russia.
Okay, five. Yep.
Mhm.
Which
And like, you just need one person to veto a resolution. And
Which-
it's dead.
I mean, and no offense to our French compatriots, but why are they on the Security Council when?
Because they were an ally in the World War II. Dude, the French are more badass than you think.
Well, I mean,
People
they
get, like,
have been
let me ask you
one
this.
of our closest allies.
Yeah, but people
Since our
don't like the
inception.
French now. People don't like the French now because they didn't support the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They refused to help. And
Which
they
is-
voted against it.
Which is really funny because we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the French.
The French are not pussies. That's the thing.
No.
People are just mad at France because they didn't want to start a war in the Middle East. Which
But I
we
mean-
all know was a super smart decision.
But I mean, look at France today. I mean, they're not what they were back then at all. I mean,
When?
what? Well,
When?
no, like when they supported America, well, basically because they were pissed off against the British.
Well, they were still a monarchy at that point,
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I
mean,
love
there's a lot to it.
France, but
that's the thing. Is like you can't. People only talk shit on France because France didn't want to send troops to Afghanistan,
Yep.
which we now know was the correct choice.
Which, how funny is it that you know, when we started the war on terror, well, not started, but officially started the war on terror.
Well, we started it when we blew up the World Trade Center.
Yeah. Oh. But like when we started officially,
did you?
when we officially started the war on terror, that our like the country that like immediately said, "Yep, we're going with them," was the United Kingdom, and then like the country that helped us become a country was like, "No." Like,
Yeah.
really, like how weird is that?
That's because imperialists have a lot of like.
Yeah.
Oh shit! There we go. I'm good now.
I mean, but I mean, like,
All right.
but let's bring it back on topic because we kind of skewed away from.
It's all interconnected.
I mean, it
It's all
is.
interconnected.
It is because literally all this stuff can like be all traced back to like World War One and World War Two. I mean,
It's literally those two wars, dude.
Yep.
World War One and World War Two have literally affected every geopolitical controversy.
Yep.
Going forward.
I mean, and
Um,
you talk about World War II. I mean, you know, America didn't even want to get involved. The people didn't want to get involved in that until was it the sinking? Yeah, well, till Pearl Harbor,
World War One was the sinking of
In
Lusitania.
Lusitania, and
You know how
World
many-
War
you
II
know
was
how many
Pearl Harbor.
socialists got thrown in prison because they opposed the war.
Yep.
And like that had a lot to do with like the Espionage Act was like, listen, if you are causing people to not go to war,
Yep.
like to not to like go missing and not sign up for the war, you are getting charged the Espionage Act.
I'll just claim right now, FDR was a warmonger. He wanted us to get into the war.
Every president is, man. Every
Why are you
president
guys not historian teachers?
takes a lot of college and doesn't pay enough.
Because it doesn't pay shit and people don't listen anyways. Why do you think we're still in the same shit that we are now?
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to learn, nobody wants to listen.
So on
Holy
that
crap.
note, I guess the final thoughts on Israel for me is read more.
Yeah.
You guys, y'all out there need to do research. You need to not go under the impression that we need to protect Israel because it's God's chosen people, because that's stupid and you're smarter than that. Yeah.
I'd like to point out that Jesus would absolutely not support this shit at all.
No.
This would literally be the money changers in the temple situation for him. He would go beat the shit out of everyone that's responsible for this.
I would implore you guys to look up the verse that talks about swords and the plowshares.
Yep.
Graham, what are your final thoughts on Israel?
That I'm stupid. No, I don't know. It's crazy because like these are conversations. Well, you and I had like 7 years. You know, I just don't have these conversations with people. Like nobody in my group or like.
Hey,
you know,
come on now.
Well, no, we do. You know, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I just don't have them enough where I get to like engage. That's why the podcast is good because I get to hear, and I get to engage in it. But I don't have like enough of these conversations with people to like my life is so different right now that like suddenly like everything that I used to pay attention to, which would be politics, used to be this type of stuff, religion, persecution, peacetime, all these different things. Like I used to be involved with all that stuff. I really realized like now, even just from tonight, a lot of things that you guys talked about, like I know, but I forgot about.
Yep.
Because when you, like you said, when you don't read or you don't stay caught up on it, then it does fade from your memory, and it does fade from like your involvement or desire to know more about what's going on. So then it's easier, and not that I fell into any like pro this or pro that, but then it's easier for people if you're not looking into it or you're not keeping yourself caught up on something. It's easier to fall into the wrong news information or the wrong understanding of what's going on.
Yep.
So I would agree with Matt, like read up and like be on top of it because if you don't, it's much like anything else, you don't have an opinion that's valued at least.
Yep.
That's why Graham kept his goddamn mouth shut. No. But I think I mean we gotta get to the like it's gotta stop.
Yeah.
And real change is leaders of the world stepping in and forcing. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing when you force change, because you can't ask for change, right? Israel's not gonna be like, oh, you guys make good sense, and we're not gonna do that. That's not what's gonna happen. It's gonna, no matter what, there's no positive out of this. It's always gonna be a negative.
No.
There's never a positive in these type of situations. It's always a negative. Hence, 2,000, 3,000 plus years of this bullshit going on. Hence, this will go on until the end of time anyway. Not validating why we're doing or why anyone is doing this.
Well,
it's just the way it is. And if we want it to stop, it will have to be by force of hand.
Let me ask you something. Do you think Elon has the right idea? Let's just fucking go to Mars.
No, because what are you going to do at Mars?
We're going to terraform it, man.
You're going to do the same damn thing. People are going to fight and attack and kill each other. China's got satellites over there now landing on Mars, and do you think America's happy about that? No.
Yeah, but we were there first anyways.
Well, yeah, just like the moon. Okay.
Screw it.
Alan, do we have any Ask Reddit for tonight?
Oh god, we do have some Ask Reddits for tonight.
All right.
So the first one I want to go with, let me pull it up here. Cuz I'm on Reddit a lot. So, and I tend to like get a lot of Ask Reddit threads pulled up. So the first question I want to ask, which is just more of an entertaining thing, what is the fattest thing that you ever did?
The fattest?
The fattest.
Oh shit.
So
fattest thing.
I can go first because I got a pretty good one, and Matt was there to witness this.
You kind of did it this weekend.
Well, besides that one, so the one that I did, just for an example, so that you guys kind of know what you're looking for, is that there's two things. The first one is that Matt witnessed this, is when I made, was it a 5-pound burger? It was 5 pounds of hamburger. It was like 2 pounds of bacon and four or 5 or 6 buns. I don't remember.
It was very, very large.
And I sat there and I ate the whole damn thing. and then the second thing I did was literally this weekend when I ate 3, like, they weren't even quarter-pound burgers, were they, Graham? They were more like 8th pound.
They're quarter-pound burgers.
But what are they quarter? Okay, 3 quarter-pound burgers, 3, and then I ate a ton of pizza. Like
pizza.
It was probably like an entire pizza by myself.
Pizza.
Yeah. So
it's so bad that picture that I showed you guys at the beginning of the episode. Alan couldn't lay on the floor because it hurt his tummy. So he kept getting up and he would sit and he'd be like, and he couldn't sit because it hurt his tummy.
Which is sad because I've actually lost a ton of weight in like the last 6 months.
There was support in why you were eating that way.
Oh god, lots of support.
It's funny about the burger thing because we had a show and Alan ordered. We sat down and Alan ordered this burger and he's like, make it a double. And the lady goes, do you know it's a 1 pound burger? And he's like, yeah.
Make it a double.
Problem. Make it a double. And so he got a 2 pound burger with bacon on it, like 6 pieces of bacon on it, 2 slices of cheese. He ordered fries and he ordered curds.
Holy shit.
Ate them all.
Yeah.
That motherfucker was so sweaty during our show. Like just the meat sweats coming out of him. And he wasn't moving on stage. He's just like this was hard for him. It was the worst.
Tell you what,
and then the end of the night, he did not help us tear down because he just destroyed.
But I still outdrank every single one of you. Every person in the bar.
Well, I bet you had all that food.
On top of that, he probably had 2 or 3 pitchers to himself.
Yep.
Jeez.
And probably 2 bottles of whiskey.
That boy, man.
4 bottles of whiskey?
Yeah. I think that question was only for Alan. I don't think it was for
I gotta
us.
say, I don't know that I really have any moments where I'm like, this was the fattest thing I've ever done. Like, I mean, I think like anytime I go somewhere, I always order than I should, but not to that excess.
Oh my god! This is not my fattest thing I've ever done because I don't know either. One of the fattest things I've ever seen, besides these Allen stories that are coming up tonight, my buddy Kevin, who used to live in the Tin Shed, and he would order Domino's or Pizza Hut or whatever. They would walk into our house and put it on his lap, and he would pay them from the couch, and they would walk out. That's a pretty fat thing. He ain't fat no more. He was a big boy back then.
See,
and
that's the thing is,
but that was kind of that moment for him to go. Or another fat thing. If my buddy Troll ever watches this, he used to buy a kitchen in a box at Walmart and use everything. And instead of cleaning the dishes, he'd throw them all away and go buy another kitchen in a box.
Oh no. Okay, so I don't have like a fattest moment, but I think like if I had to like name like my worst fat person bad habit is like if I buy like a meal at McDonald's, I'm always buying an extra double cheeseburger to go with it.
Oh, you mean a McDouble, right?
Yeah.
So
like I'll get like a double quarter pounder meal.
Yep.
And a double cheeseburger.
You just gave Alan a hard on.
No, I mean like
if I go to Taco Bell, right? If I go to Taco Bell, I'll get the chalupa meal and a cheesy gordita crunch.
Like I mean, like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I used to do stuff like that. Like, I'd get like a Big Mac, or not that, but a double quarter pounder with cheese, and then order like 2 McDoubles on the side. Like today,
Yeah.
for example, at work, we made pancakes and sausage for our clients at work. That was our lunch today. And literally after one plate, I was sitting there like, oh my god, I had 2 pancakes and 2 patties of sausage, and I was like, I can't move anymore. Like that's
Yeah,
like that's
I,
how different like my diet has become during the pandemic, is that
Here's
I can't even eat more than like 2. Literally, the pancakes were maybe like that size.
Yeah.
so here's another. So apparently, this we just need Alan needs to be inebriated in some way because like this is Alan has this other great story, the sub and 5 pound jar of pickles.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
So Alan bought this 24-inch sub and a 5 pound jar of pickles, and these were the big fat pickles, and he was hammed at the end of the show. Hammed. He's like walking down the aisle with this big jar of pickles and this big 2 foot long sub. And that shit was gone by 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
No.
I saved I saved half of the sub, and I only ate like 2
for the morning.
for the morning, and I ate it in the morning,
Which was 3 hours later.
and I brought the jar of pickles home, and I ate it over like the course of like the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, it was still fucking hilarious.
It
And we
was-
have a picture of that too.
Yep.
Alan going,
I don't know why I did these things. And that was another night too, where it's like the amount that I drank was like unfathomable. Like
yeah, that
literally,
was a rough night too.
it was one of those a mortal man would not have been able to survive that.
You see, I can't drink like that anymore. Oh, I'd never be able to drink fucking 2 bottles. Listen, I don't know how you do it.
I've seen Alan put down a full bottle of what's top shelf, Alan,
Oh,
that you like to drink.
Well, well, Jameson isn't necessarily top shelf. It's just I like Irish whiskey, but like
Yeah.
Maker's Mark. Remember
Maker's
that?
Mark. I don't remember what bar we were at, but they're like drinks around the house, and Alan kept getting Maker Cokes, and he drank the bottle, and then did not tip the damn bar at the end of the night.
Nope. I don't know why I didn't tip.
$150 worth of alcohol, bar tab alcohol, and he didn't tip the whole freaking night. And he was like, "I ain't tipping them."
They're paying me to be here. What do you mean? I can if I have like a 12-pack of White Claws, I can drink 10.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna feel like shit the next day.
Yeah.
I cannot drink the way I used to.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No.
What's the next question, Alan? What
The
do you got
next
for us?
the next question is, now this is going to be interesting because I'm interested to hear your responses. But what's the dumbest rule your school ever enforced?
Oh,
dumbest-
yeah.
Dumbest
Yeah.
rule.
No portable CD players in the hallways.
Wow.
Yep.
How about
And so like
Pokemon
now,
cards?
I never saw that, but like literally like now, like kids are allowed to have their phones in class.
No.
And like they could like jam music. Like I remember when I got to high school, it wasn't a big deal. Like you could like have your iPod. Aging myself by saying that, which sounds so weird. But, like, you
They still
I
make
used to
them.
rock with a Walkman.
Dude,
So
they still make
Well, that's the
iPods.
thing. Well, I mean, like when I was younger, like in junior high and stuff. I mean, I still had a Walkman at that point, and like, yeah, they were not allowed in the hallways.
No. Wow.
Yeah, so dumb.
middle school, you couldn't play quarters. Remember quarters?
Oh
You
yeah.
put your knuckles on the table and
Yep.
you slam. You couldn't do that. What were those slammers? What was that?
Pogs.
Game?
Pogs.
You couldn't play Pogs. In high school, we used to get in trouble for playing hacky sack,
Mm-hmm.
and so we got hacky sack taken away from us. We'd get in trouble, like they'd always take our hacky sack. So we started a hacky sack club and
So
put
they
it
could
our
play hacky
allotted,
sack?
so we could play hacky sack during our lunch hours.
When I was in high school, we played Buck during
Yep,
lunch hour.
Buck. We did that at your wedding.
We did, and yeah, we got in trouble because we were always playing it inside, and we'd just be like slamming into the ground in the hallways and everything. Eventually, like you're gonna have to play this outside if you want to play this. Like literally every single day, we were outside playing Buck. It was awesome.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
fun.
we all, my group also got like plastic bottles taken away because we used to put liquor in our bottles. Hats were taken away because we used to put joints or cigarettes in the back brim of our hat.
Yep.
But yeah, the hacky sack thing was our.
I literally have way too many answers because I went to a Christian school.
Oof.
Oh, so breathing.
Yeah, literally.
Probably
The
couldn't
way
even hold your girlfriend's hand, could you?
no, like, I mean, just to give you a taste, we had our dress code was no blue jeans for the guys. Girls had to wear skirts. No graphic tees. So no t-shirts with like writing on it. The guys had to wear collared shirts, either button up or like pullovers.
What school did you go to?
The guy's hair. Hold on, the guy's hair couldn't be below the ears. The guys also couldn't have any facial hair. Had to be clean shaven. I mean, you had to wear a belt. Your shirts had to be tucked in.
Lost me already then.
Yeah, I mean, it
Hey,
was.
tucking a shirt.
I mean, this was a Christian school that was run by ultra conservative Baptists.
Where's this at?
This is in Brainerd, Minnesota.
Oh, see, you haven't lived where you've lived your whole life.
No.
Oh.
I lived in the Brainerd Lakes area. I came from where I'm at now. Like, this is the area I'm in is where I was born, and then we moved to central Minnesota, and that's where I went to high school. And my first.
That's when I met you. You still lived in Brainerd.
Yep, that's where I was from. Yep. Well, not from, but that's where I grew up. So I mean, like, I could literally pull up like the student handbook still to this day from that school because it still exists, and I could read it to you. Like that could be another podcast where we could just go through all
Oak
of the.
Street Christian School.
Yeah, we could go through all that. I mean, this school. Let me tell you, this school, the colleges they promoted were Pensacola, Pillsbury Baptist, which no longer exists, Bob Jones University, and Maranatha Baptist Bible College.
Disgusting.
Those four.
I remember like growing up, all the hymns and stuff were always Maranatha Music Group.
Yep. I mean, like me being a bass player, like that was not an acceptable instrument to play. Like, I remember bringing my acoustic bass guitar because to like school, and like the just like teachers looking at me like,
Is that why you grew your hair out as soon as you got to Oak Hills?
oh yeah, dude, definitely.
Makes sense.
I mean, that I like. Oh yeah. That's
Where-
another thing
where
I forgot. You couldn't even color your hair.
Gross.
Yep.
Cool,
Yikes.
man.
That should
Cool, we
probably
should-
answer a lot of questions of why I am the way I am now.
Yeah, for sure. Was that the last question? You got one more for us.
You want another one? Okay, here's
One more.
here's another fun. This one is a more lighthearted, fun one.
Okay.
That wasn't the question, Alan. Do you have one?
I do.
Or was that the last? No, you guys want another one.
So, no, not that. Hold on. What is a random combination of food you always eat but don't tell anyone because you know it sounds nasty together?
Ketchup on everything.
Ooh.
I always get made fun of that by my wife, the Polak.
You were such a Minnesotan, put ketchup on everything.
God, I got the sneezes. I like A1 on my hash browns.
Yeah.
For me, it's actually peanut butter and cheese, man.
Yeah, fuck that, dude. You
Yeah.
always said that. That's disgusting, dude.
See what I mean? like you guys are like, oh yeah, ketchup on everything or A1 on hash browns. I've done both of those. It's delicious.
12 years.
Like you could say cheese on American pie, because even though that's fucking weird, like that's pretty popular. But cheese on peanut butter, you're going to hell.
I don't know.
And I don't even believe in hell. But I still think you're going to hell.
I've always done it.
I hope you go there.
Well, like,
That's foul.
for example, one of the pizzas I bought this weekend is called the Loudon. It's from Zorba's. That's a Minnesota chain.
All right,
And-
don't start rubbing that in, because I would try that, and that's different. You know
It is delicious because it's peanut butter, jalapeno, pepperoni, with regular pizza red sauce
and extra cheese.
and extra cheese. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's different, Alan. It's different cheese.
it is. Is your cheese just like
Kraft
commod
singles?
cheese?
No,
Kraft singles?
I've done it with like Kraft singles. I've done it. With,
Wait, do tell. There's a variation. I want to know what type
oh yeah,
of cheese
I've done it.
you're
I've done it
using.
with Kraft singles. I've done it with Velveeta. I've done it with Land
Oh,
O'Lakes.
Velveeta.
I've done it with Colby. I've done it with cheddar. I mean, like any cheese you name, I have combined it with, and it still tastes great.
Velveeta is the worst creation.
Yeah. What kind?
My mom used to make fucking Velveeta mac and cheese with tuna in it.
I mean, literally,
So gross.
peanut butter and cheese sandwiches were like a staple of like if I wanted to make something, I would just do peanut butter and cheese and a tall glass of milk.
Milk is also fucking disgusting, dude. Get out of here.
I don't even know.
All right.
I don't know you.
On that podcast. TC, I'm not-
Yeah, I don't know you. That's weird. Like that's.
milk is foul.
I
We
love
used to eat
milk.
tuna melts growing up
Oh,
with cheese. Like it was weird, dude. It was
tuna's disgusting too.
an English muffin,
I love
tuna
eating
with
tuna
tomato.
in more ways than one.
Thank you for watching. It's been
Yeah. Holy shit. Goodbye. Demonetized.
Oh yeah,
well, guys. That's all we have for Ask Reddit this evening.
yeah. There's
no.
nothing left.
I hope you enjoyed
Matt,
our
you are not
conversation.
allowed. You are not allowed to ask him if there's more Ask Reddits ever again.
Yeah,
I'm gonna reach to the goddamn computer.
yeah.
I was at many of them.
So I think with that, guys, we're gonna end it there. So
Great.
thanks for hanging out with us, talking about Israel and Alan's disgusting stuff. You've been watching Instagram Matt podcast. I'm Matt.
Wow, we fucking ended that shit. I'm Graham.
I'm Alan.
Peace.